those who have died before, what did it feel like and how did you die? Like going to sleep. It was warm, silent blackness. I took 380 plus pills, including muscle relaxants, painkillers, and the like. My heart stopped before the ambulance arrived at the hospital, and I swear I remember hearing a flat line. There was nothing after death. In a way, it's comforting, if not a little heartbreaking. Motorcycle accident when I was 13. Clinically dead for a minute and a half. Don't remember anything from earlier that day till I woke in the hospital a few days later. I died on the operating table. I don't remember anything about it as I was dead at the time. Hope you get better. I was strangled by a violent brute. After struggling, I realized I was completely powerless against it. There was a feeling of letting go. I remember my vision closed into a tunnel, but my other senses were heightened. As time slowed down, I was intrigued by the warmth and silkiness of my satin trousers against my thighs and the rich smell of dirt and diesel on the floor. At that stage, I dissociated and was floating above myself, watching it all. I was calm and vaguely bemused. I guess my unresponsiveness led him to let go and I came back to myself. Insulin overdose. I died twice in my partner's arms. It felt like going to sleep, as essentially it was. I remember being in a dream state as I stopped breathing. I felt at peace. My heart stopped for little over a minute each time. No tunnel of light or choir of angels, just a world fading to black and a deep sense of serenity. I was near death after 2 perforated ulcers caused me to bleed out one night. I had vomited a lot of blood and was basically going into shock. I was in the ambulance and decided that I just wanted to go. I was having trouble breathing, so I decided to just stop breathing and I closed my eyes and it was like falling asleep. Until I felt like someone punched me in my chest and I gasped back to consciousness. I broke my femur when I was 22 and I was in the hospital for a few weeks. I was in so much pain that after the first few days they decided I needed to sleep and they turned up the morphine drip. I coded in the middle of the night and then they resuscitated me with an adrenaline shot. This was in the 90s. Apparently I was clinically dead for almost 1 minute. Maybe that's not very long to be dead or whatever, but there was nothing to it. Nothing. No tunnel of light. No hugs from deceased relatives. Nothing. I've only died from overdoses, unfortunately, so I don't actually remember it, and the deaths were just blackouts. My worst was being dead 12 minutes before being brought by. Took 4 shots of Narcan and they almost gave up. My girlfriend at the time had my mom on the phone standing outside the ambulance calling her to tell her I died. But before my girlfriend could even get her first word out, they used a defibrillator in a last-ditch effort to see if they could bring me back. And it fucking worked. It fucking worked. I always tear up like no other when I tell or write that story. I'm so grateful for the life I live and the people in it. Happy to be 5 years clean off opiates into weeks. Cardiac arrest at age 23. I did not realize what was happening but began to feel lightheaded and sat down, and then remember feeling an incredibly brief overwhelming peace and comfort followed by absolute nothingness. My heart was kept going by CPR until paramedics came with a defibrillator. Becoming alert again at hospital was painful and brutal, which I think was mostly because CPR, when done correctly, is gnarly. I thought this was a meme type of question, but reading the answers gave me a whole different perspective on life. Thank you all for sharing. It gave me a different perspective of death. This doesn't really count, but I remember at 24 having problems breathing asthma. I've had multiple hospitalizations as a child for this. I was moving what felt like 10% air from what my lungs could normally move. I remember laying in my bed alone, knowing I wouldn't make it overnight. Randomly, my girlfriend had shown up to my house. It was out of character for her to come over unannounced, but she did and saved my life. She walked into my room and could immediately tell this was a level 10 emergency and rushed me to the hospital. In the moments prior to her arrival, I remember laying there, calm, trying to conserve breaths and accepting my fate. I drove off a cliff on my 19th birthday accidentally. No drugs involved. I don't remember anything but the feeling. I was happier than I've ever been, and I felt safe and loved. And then I was pulled back, and it was agonizing. I was pretty suicidal for several months because I wanted to go back. My ex-friend told me when he was little he was swimming in a river with his siblings and family, and his older sister was roughhousing him and held him underwater too long. He said he lost consciousness, and his exact words, "It felt like my entire body having an orgasm." Dirt bike accident where I was clotheslined by a rusty chain at about 25 miles per hour. I was partially decapitated, arteries and windpipe broke apart. I was flown in a helicopter to a hospital and remember the guy on the helicopter continuously talking to me, telling me not to fall asleep. I fought but did go to sleep or died. It really does just feel like you are going to sleep peacefully. I was revived a few minutes later at the hospital where I remember coming back and awake for maybe a few seconds before I was either put under or blacked out, then woke up a day or so later on a bed with a tube down my throat in the ER. Met the pilot and guy who kept talking to me a few weeks later in recovery. Owe them my life. A guy I used to work with did a lot of sailing and actually drowned once before being resuscitated. He said that the last thing he remembered before going out was this feeling of absolutely peaceful serenity. Anaphylaxis. Like the others, I felt sleepy. It was peaceful. I kinda liked it, and now I am not afraid to die. Glad you survived. Anaphylaxis, scary stuff. I was ran over when I was very young. I have a memory of floating over white buildings with people waving out of the windows. I died 4 times on the operating table trying to remove a blood clot on the brain. No idea if this was a dream or something real. When I was younger, I drowned in a lake. It was scary at first, but when the sun broke through the clouds, all of a sudden, the cove I was in was glowing this green gold, and I felt incredibly peaceful. After the first breath of water, the world got quiet and I drifted. My experience of death was strange. I was conscious and I was me. It was dark, but not because there was no light, but rather no sight. I was a drop of water in a puddle in an ocean. I could feel all consciousnesses surrounding me while still autonomous. It was wonderful, but they sent me back because I was back too soon. I also had a similar experience in another asphyxiation situation, so that really reinforced my lack of fear surrounding death. I look forward to it and will continue to push myself to enjoy this version of reality before I go. Didn't know this at the time. Something septic infection in my colon, probably from a carrot virus, caused my body to go into fever or shock, ambulance, and then hospitalized. Minutes after being hooked up to everything, I lost all vitals, flat line, shit my pants, and then nurses performed CPR in front of my ex-fiancée. I came back and she was crying and I was like, did I faint and shit my pants? No, for a minute you died. I still have the pajamas I left the hospital in. Fainting and anesthesia felt the same in terms of memory. I wonder if it's hurt my heart more than my brain. Drowned almost. Hurt like hell, then everything went still. Then hurt like hell when being resuscitated. Well, yeah, when you got Ed Harris on top of you, beating the shit out of you and screaming fight in your face. My mom had surgery, and after they finished, they wanted to give her some pain medication to wake up on. They accidentally gave her something paralyzing, which closes down every muscle, also the heart. She knew she was dying, but I couldn't say anything as you also lose your ability to speak. She died, but they noticed last minute and revived her, but she was gone for a couple minutes. She says she saw the white tunnel light and then saw herself from above the corner of the room laying there lifeless. She says it was very peaceful and not frightening at all. Almost like coming home. My mom does not believe in life after death or anything that could be a bit supernatural, so I believe her. I've heard many stories like it afterwards. Thank you for watching. Please comment if you have experienced similar situations. Sending a hug, and goodbye.